So today, we're going to be talking about diversity and inclusivity. And I want to start with a reading called The Cold Within by George Kirby. 6 humans trapped by happenstance in bleak and bitter cold. Each one possessed a stick of wood, or so the story's told. Their dying fire in need of logs, the first woman held hers back. For on the faces round the fire, she noticed one was black. The next man looking across the way saw not one of his church, and couldn't bring himself to give the fire his stick of birch. The third one sat in tattered clothes, he gave his coat a hitch. Why should his log be put to use to warm the idle rich? The rich man just sat back and thought of the wealth he had in store, and how to keep what he had earned from the lazy, shiftless poor. The black man's face bespoke revenge as the fire passed from sight, for all he saw in his stick of wood was a chance to spite the white. This verse is added by me. The manly man, an eyebrow raised, a look of pure dismay. He would not add his stick to help the one he knew was gay. And the last man of this forlorn group did not accept for gain. Giving to those who gave was how he played his game. The logs held in death's still hands was proof of human sin. They didn't die from cold without. They died from cold within. Yeah, that's good, huh? Wayne Dyer, paraphrase, said, "You're not an American, an Italian or African. You're not male or female, Democrat or Republican. You're not straight or gay, rich or poor. You're not athletic or magical, mathematical or literary, or any other label. You're a member of one race, the human race. You are one with the true oneness of God." Kofi Annan said, "We may have different religions, different languages, different colored skin, but we all belong to one human race." Marian Wright Edelman said, "When Jesus Christ asked little children to come to him, he didn't say only rich children or white children or children with 2-parent families or children who didn't have a mental or physical handicap. He said, 'Let all children come to me.'" And Paul in Galatians 3:28 said, "There is neither Greek nor Jew, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus." And the scripture clearly tells us that we are all members of the body of Christ. We're all members of the body of Christ. I want you just to think about that for a moment. You know, we're all members of this body that makes up the Christ consciousness, what we would call really the second coming of, you know, when it's talked about in traditional churches, there's a belief that the actual Jesus is actually coming. We believe the second coming is as each of us gains more awareness and lives more from that Christedness of our beingness. And so my hope today is that all of us, something is stirred up within us, that we do feel the call of something more, that we feel that call to be, and in the song, that call of something more, what am I here for? Well, we're here for love. That's why we're here. We are here to love. We are here to be loved. And that's why we're here, to be the expression of love in action. So I said that we were going to talk about diversity, and we're also going to talk about inclusivity. You know, that's one of the things when we welcome people for the first time, that we are an inclusive spiritual community. So diversity is the range of human differences, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, social class, physical ability or attributes, religious or ethical value system, national origin, and political beliefs. So we celebrate diversity, but the more important part of this is inclusivity. And inclusion is involvement and empowerment where the inherent worth and dignity of all people are recognized. Of all people, all people. There's no little things there, with exceptions where the worth and dignity of all people are recognized. You know, we are told that the first great commandment is love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And I've always thought that this was so brilliant because I believe that the second part of the commandment is how we love God. And because Jesus goes on to say, and the second one is like unto the first, and it is love your neighbor as you. Yes. It was like, stop. So again, recognizing we are the beloved. We are here to be loved, to feel that love, to take in all the love that God is, because there's never a withholding. And we are here to be that love in expression. 1 John 4:8 tells us that God is love. And love ultimately is oneness. It's connection. It's seeing each other. It's recognizing, again, the inherent value and worth in each and every person. And what we do know is that Jesus, our great master teacher, he expressed and he showed us himself the importance of oneness. He really saw people. And I want to say here that today I'm not talking about just seeing the divinity in people. I'm talking about seeing each other. Seeing each other in our humanness and seeing each other in the unique expressions that we have come forth as, and honoring these expressions and valuing these expressions. And so he ate with the tax collectors, and this was like a really big deal at that time because sharing a meal was not something that you typically did. It wasn't as casual of a thing as it is today. It was a sign of mutual acceptance. He stood on the side of an adulteress. He defended a woman who outraged an all-male banquet. And not only did she do that, but then she, with unveiled and unbraided hair, washed his feet. And he stood on her side. He was given water at the well by a Samaritan woman, which was a big deal. He touched a leper and helped him. He went amongst sick people all the time. The point being that he was showing us that no matter how somebody looks or how they're expressing in the outer, that they matter. And we're pretty good at judging, aren't we? We're pretty good at creating all kinds of boundaries in our I can't even say relationships, because a lot of times we don't even consider, and not even a relationship, but just like a hello relationship, So it's becoming aware of that. The fifth basic principle of unity is it's not enough to know the truth. We must live the truth that we know. And so today I'm calling us up to that something more, to that really standing in our principles and standing in our values, and as individuals in the spiritual community, and then coming together as a collective whole, as really being able to, not just in our spiritual community, but in our neighborhoods and in our community at large, to be a stand for the unique individuated expressions of God, whoever they are. So, the first step to embracing diversity is recognizing that we ourselves may actually have some bias and prejudices. Do we think we might have some of those? And it's okay. It's okay. I want to read to you something that I read, which I thought was powerful. It says, most of us are burdened with prejudice and intolerance from our families, friends, and unfortunately many of our leaders. There should be no shame in admitting that we harbor some prejudice on issues such as race, religion, and sexual orientation. What is shameful is our failure to examine those prejudices before we can effectively, especially, help the generations that are coming after us. We have to examine those things within ourselves. And I like how he says there's no shame in it, because we have had a lot of programming from our past in growing up with our parents and with our families at large, with our culture, with our schools, with our churches, with our friends, whatever it was. And so it's just waking up and becoming aware. So some of the prejudices or biases that we might look at are race, religion, gender, socioeconomic status, sexual orientation, education level, weight, political views, what we would call someone who is non-attractive, disabled people, people who are elderly, people with lots of tattoos, people with long hair, lots of piercings, etc. And, it's interesting because I thought that sometimes I will find myself feeling prejudiced against people who I think are prejudiced. So it's like recognizing that this stuff is just there and waking up. We talk about this all the time. Our greatest point of power is in the present moment, and it's awareness, allowing ourselves to become aware of maybe where am I holding some of these, and why. Is kind of a good reason, like to look at and see why, and then being willing to let those things go. And I want to say here too, because one of the words that I've heard forever is tolerance. And I want to tell you, throw that word out, because to tolerate is to allow the existence, as if we are so arrogant to say, well, I'll tolerate that. Who are we? Who do we think we are? Is that a connection? Is that a oneness? That is such separation. So I just want to invite you to throw that word out insofar as it relates to how we're showing up with diversity. And another thing is, as we're looking, are we looking through the filters of, society, family, cultural, religious lenses? And what ideas of normal, acceptable, fitting in ideas do you have? In other words, based on all these filters, who am I not seeing? Who am I not even acknowledging? Who am I just totally dismissing as though they don't matter at all? Who am I judging as being just too different or too weird? And the thing is, we probably all do it at some point, and we don't even realize it. And when we dismiss people, we miss an opportunity to help them to see their innate value. Because most of the time when we're dismissing somebody, they probably already have some kind of issues in there, because we have these quote-unquote societal norms, and so we miss an opportunity to give them the gift of saying, you matter. You have inherent value. And I love, because we talked about this last week or the week before, that when we ourselves are willing to say, you matter, I see you, you have value, then it increases that in them. And as it increases that in them, then they're going to be more apt to turn and to give that same gift to somebody else. And it becomes this wonderful cycle, where everybody, begins lifting everybody else up. So I had a couple motivations for today's talk. One was I was raised in a pretty conservative family, and my dad was raised with prejudice. He was raised with race prejudice and sexual orientation prejudice. My mom essentially didn't have any, and I'm grateful for that, because I tend to lean towards my mom. And when I was in my early 20s, I had this friend, and I just loved her so much. It was that immediate friendship. And we did things together all the time. And I remember one day she came to me, and she was so nervous. And she said she had to tell me something, but she was really scared to tell me. And in my mind, I'm thinking, what could she possibly be wanting to tell me that would be that big of a deal? And so finally, she told me that she was a lesbian. And I remember in that moment thinking, well, I already knew that, first of all. And I was relieved, and I was I thought you were going to tell me you were dying of something or something like that. But she was so afraid to tell me because she thought she was going to lose me as her friend. And so then we talked about it, and she was raised very conservatively. She thought she was going to go to hell, and she did everything that she could to try not to be a lesbian. And finally, she finally, obviously, she accepted that she was, and it changed her life. But that was a profound experience for me, because I think that was the first time that I really, I guess because I was so sheltered in my life, I hadn't really had gay friends. And so I never thought about it. But it was the first time that it just was this is not a choice. This is not hey, I think I'm going to be gay. I'm going to be transgender. Wow, what a fun path to journey. I'm going to do this, It's not a choice. And that is so important for us to really understand and for us to really get. Now, my other motivation is that this month MSU is focusing on LGBTQ and Pride Month. And LGBTQ is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and questioning. They had a speaker, his name is Austin Hartkey, and who himself is transgendered, and he's also a Christian. And he goes around and he speaks on the Bible, especially Old Testament, and how it relates to being transgendered. And I got to get online and watch some of his YouTubes, and it was just so good. Also, at the Unitarian Universalist Church this afternoon from 3 to 5, they're having a panel discussion, and Jolene Higgins, who is one of our congregants, is going to be one of the people serving on that panel. Their focus is for both transgender and non-conforming folks and their allies to connect and build solidarity and understanding. In other words, to create a support system, because the reality is we have no idea what our transgendered community is experiencing, and it's time for us to wake up to that. And it's time for us to become allies in this journey with them. And I want to share with you, when I say transgender is an overall term. A transvestite is someone who dresses in a style or manner that's traditionally associated with the opposite sex. A transsexual is someone who themselves wishes to be seen by society as a member of the opposite biological sex. And some transsexuals do undergo surgery. So transgender is a more general term that includes transvestites, transsexuals, and anyone who doesn't conform to a typical gender role. So just to give you that. So when I say that we have no idea what our transgender people go through, from the American Academy of Pediatrics, a survey, more than half of the transgender male teens who participated in the survey reported attempting suicide in their lifetime, more than half. 29.9% of the female teens had attempted suicide in their life. And among the non-binary youth, 41.8% of the respondents stated that they had attempted suicide at one point in their life. And I want us to hear this, because we have transgendered people in our spiritual community. And this is a very real thing. And we can not keep our heads buried in the sand about this. We are here to support them and to make sure they know that they are valued and that they are loved, because the rate of suicide, not just attempted suicide, the rate of actual suicide is just unbelievable. So I talked to Brenda, and we actually got together. This was a number of years ago, and because I wanted to talk to Brenda about her journey. Well, first I want to share with you that one of our core values in Unity is diversity, and one of our vision statements is to recognize and welcome all who enter the church as unique and important creations of God. Now, the operative word in there, all. To welcome and recognize all who enter the church as unique and important creations of God. So Brenda, who is my friend, knew from the time that she was 6 that she was in the wrong body. And she shared that she had always played with girls' stuff instead of boys' stuff. She was always drawn to girls' clothes, and she knew that everything in her was female. But as a child, she was always called a sissy and always being made fun of with derogatory remarks for not being, quote unquote, the norm. And she said she would lay in bed at night crying because she knew that she was in the wrong body. She felt very disconnected. And she kept it a secret, even marrying for 13 years until she was in her 30s. And her family dynamic was pretty tough. It was, as you can imagine, most of the stories I hear and have heard up until this point have not been happy stories about family dynamics. So after having 2 breakdowns, her therapist told her that you have a choice here, that you can either be authentically who you are and come out as a female, or you can be institutionalized or the dead, because suicide is always right there. And so she decided to start being true to herself and began living as a female. Ultimately, she lost her job because they said her lifestyle reflected negatively towards the company. And, that's all out of fear. We know that comes out of fear. And she moved to Springfield in 2000, and she found unity. And I just remember her saying that this was the first church that she ever felt accepted in. It's the first church that she actually felt seen in. And I want to tell you a little bit about Brenda, because a lot of you probably don't know Brenda. But Brenda is one of the kindest and most generous human beings. And this woman has multiple talents, and I can't even begin to tell you everything that she does here in this building for us. I mean, we just have to say, hey, Brenda, this is broken, and she's like, okay, and she'll go get the parts and then she'll fix it. And I can't even tell you how many times that has happened. I mean, I'm talking dozens and dozens and dozens of times. She sets up our tables for board meeting, and she sets up the tables for class, and I mean, she's just so present and so here. And I want to encourage you to get to know Brenda. Now, Brenda's pretty quiet, so you're probably going to have to be the one to start the conversation with Brenda, right? Yeah. But she's just an amazing woman. And I asked her, how do you want people to see you? And she responded, as the woman that I really am inside. And I'll tell you, one of the greatest gifts that you can give a transgender person is to call them by the pronoun that they want to be called by. And we call her she. And she's a woman, and she's our friend, and she's very open. She has a group of us girls that, Brenda hasn't been a woman all of her life, so she's very open to, saying, hey, what about this dress? Is this good on me? And we'll, say, well, or we'll say, yeah, that's a good one, and she's very, very open to it, and we just really appreciate and love her so much. And we also have Jolene Higgins, and many of you may have seen Jolene doing some live streaming up here, but I want to tell you about Jolene, because Jolene has a heart and a passion for this message in unity. All she wants to do is get this message out, and she is a connector. Jolene will do anything that she can to get people in connection with each other. And so that's why you're going to see her live streaming. She's constantly going out to events and live streaming. She goes to political things and live streams. She comes and does our classes, on a really regular basis on Sunday mornings. She's usually in there live streaming the class. So she's really brought incredible gifts to our ministry. And I just think it's really important for us to recognize if we're holding back because they're so different from what we would call, the norm. And Brenda's a human being, and Jolene is a human being. They're people with inherent value and worth. And they're beautiful beings. And let me move beyond that to elderly people. Our sweet Papa Harry said one time, don't see my body, see my mind. And how many times do we dismiss elderly people or homeless people or maybe someone that's way overweight or whatever? We have all these conditions in our mind, right? And before we even know it, we haven't even acknowledged that they exist. We haven't even acknowledged that they're human beings and that they matter. And that's not okay for us, because that's not who we're here to be. We are here to be love. We are here to be oneness. We are here to be connection. That's who we are. That's our natural DNA. Anything that's keeping you from that is human stuff. That's all it is, human stuff. And you know what? You can change it. No excuses. You can change it. No more saying, I just don't believe in that lifestyle. It doesn't matter if you believe in the lifestyle or not. They're still human beings. It doesn't matter. You can not like the lifestyle, but that doesn't mean you have the right to dismiss a human being based on what you like or don't like. And it's time for us to move beyond that. And it's time for you and I, as individuals in this ministry, to stand up for people who are cast out in our society. And then to stand up as a community and say, this is who we are. And we stand solidly in that. Believe me, we have people come to us at different times to talk to us about different things, and we're like, nope, this is who we are. And we're not going to waver from who we are. We recognize and honor all people as unique and important creations of God that walk in that door. And that's who we're going to be. Yes. Thank you. So, Edwin Markham said, he drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, a rebel, a thing to flout, but love and I had the wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. And so today, I just hope that something's been stirred up within you. If your cage is rattled, yes, I want to rattle your cage, because we cannot be complacent. We cannot continue to hold the prejudices and biases that we have held. It is time for us to really step into the purity of who we are and recognize and honor each individual as the beautiful creations of God that they are. And so I want to close with a reading from the Course in Miracles. It says, each one you see that you place within the holy circle of atonement or leave out, each one you see, you place within the holy circle of atonement or leave outside, judging him fit for crucifixion or for redemption. If you bring him into the circle with you of purity, you will rest there with him. If you leave him out, you join him there. Judge not except in the quietness of that which is not of you. Refuse to accept anyone as without the blessing of atonement, of at-one-ment, and bring him into it by blessing him. Holiness must be shared, for therein lies everything that makes it holy. Come gladly to the holy circle and look out in peace on all who think that they are outside. Cast no one out, for here is what he seeks along with you. Come, let us join him in the holy place of peace, which is for all of us and unites us as one within that cause of peace. And so it is, and so it shall be. And I just want to say to each and every one of you, namaste, that I see you, I see your